Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Untangle 101 webinar series. Today we'll be discussing how the Untangle Policy Manager and Directory Connector applications work together to set up policies by username and group. My name is Shannon Miles, and I'm part of the product marketing team here at Untangle, and I'll be the host today. I also have with us our Director of Sales, Katie Benson, who will be doing the presentation and the demonstration later on. So just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. If you have any audio issues, please just use the audio panel to select your preference. If you select to use a phone, you'll need to dial in and use the access code provided. Just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so you'll have the option to rewatch or revisit any areas that you need to follow up on. And we'll be answering questions throughout the presentation, so please be sure to submit your questions in the Q&A box. And as always, you can send questions to sales@untangle.com. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Katie.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Hopefully this will be beneficial to you in learning how to use Directory Connector and Policy Manager within your Untangle instance. If you're already using it, hopefully it'll just kind of be a background on checking the way that you have it set up. If this is brand new to you, then stick with us, and if you have any additional questions after the webinar and the demo is done, we're happy to help you then. So let's go over the agenda and kind of see what we're going to be talking about today and where we'll finish out in this 30-minute session. So we're going to go over who Untangle is, what we do as a company, what our solutions offer, NG Firewall, and kind of what applications and features we offer in addition to specifying Directory Connector and Policy Manager as a whole, and also how it works. And then we will follow through with a demonstration and continue in to provide some resources and areas that could help you as you navigate the product. So Untangle was founded in 2003 with the vision of providing users a simple, powerful way to get enterprise-grade network protection designed for small businesses and especially at an affordable price. That's always an area of concern for businesses given constraints on budgets these days in different markets. So Untangle's been successful in the small to medium sector and providing a great solution for an affordable price. We're located in San Jose, California, and we've been awarded in the last few years with one of the fastest growing privately held companies in North America, including ranked on the Deloitte Technology Fast 500, the Inc. 5000, and we've been focused or shown in the Silicon Valley Business Journal. So those are some great areas that are getting the brand out. Hopefully you've seen them there. If not, you've seen them on Spiceworks and other areas. And hopefully referred to our product from somebody who's had success with it. So our flagship product, the NG Firewall, which we're going to reference today, serves over 40,000 customers, and it protects nearly 2 million people with their computers and their networks. NG Firewall is deployed in all industries like government, healthcare, hospitality and retail, banking, financial areas, as well as K-12 and higher education. So no matter what industry you're in, Untangle can be a fit for you, and we'll see kind of how that works with the Directory Connector and Policy Manager today. So on this slide you see Untangle's next generation firewall is simple, it's powerful, it's an all-in-one security firewall, it's a unified threat management solution, all in one. Placed at the edge of your network, it basically it sits at the gateway of your internet, and it performs deep packet analysis on traffic and all applications. So our technology is basically designed to optimize at layer 7, processing all relevant protocols with policy management tailoring specifically to real-world security risks and network management challenges that we all face. That's where we find use of our product. We find great success with virtual pipelining. We offer a free download so that if you're a little nervous and not sure exactly what we can do, use our product for 14 days. We'll show you what we can do. The proof is in the pudding. So Keep that in mind as we go through. You do have a free 14-day trial that you can download. Yeah.
We're getting some questions that the screen isn't being shared.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Shannon, let me know when you can see it. Hang on one second. Sorry about that.
Okay, I think we're good now.
Over there now? Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Should I go back a little bit, you think, or I can go back just to show you as I was talking through, I was showing you the agenda, kind of who Untangle is, who we are and what we do, and this is where I was finishing off. So I apologize again for that.
Are you sharing this the slides right now?
I am. Are you not seeing them either?
I see the title slide.
Oh, okay. Hang on one second.
There we go.
Okay. I was on the wrong screen. I apologize. Technical difficulties. All right. So let's go back. I apologize again. Let's show you agenda, who we are, what Untangle does, and then who we are and what we can do for you. So we'll move on to, these are the feature sets that Untangle offers. As I mentioned before, it's an all-in-one firewall solution. It's a unified threat management solution that protects your network and simplifies complex policy management. So as you can see on this screen, these are all of the areas that Untangle performs well, whether it be with protecting, performing, managing, filtering connection, or something as simple as branding it to make it your own, and offering support to clients or yourself through our support channel. So today, again, we're going to feature Directory Connector and Policy Manager, so we'll move on to that as well. If you're new to Untangle, let's go over ways to deploy Untangle. If you are currently using Untangle, bear with us for 10 seconds while I just reiterate the deployment options with Untangle. So on this slide, you see on the left-hand side, you see the bridge mode. That's basically going to be simply putting Untangle between your firewall and your main switch. You also have an option to set it up as a router firewall, and that it basically is going to be in line with all traffic, and traffic has to flow through your Untangle device in order to be filtered. Again, keep in mind that Untangle is an inline filter and not a proxy server or a proxy setup, so in order for traffic to be filtered, it does have to be inline. Shannon, do we have any questions thus far? I know that I kind of messed up with the audio and the screen a little bit earlier, but do we have any questions that pertain to confusion?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, awesome. So as I mentioned before, today we're focusing on Directory Connector and Policy Manager applications from the NG Firewall suite. The Directory Connector is designed to leverage your existing Microsoft Active Directory server to simplify policy management and provide detailed reporting. In a few minutes, we'll jump into that demo, and you can kind of understand a little better how that works in conjunction with your Active Directory. Of course, Directory Connector isn't going to be of use to you if you do not use Microsoft Active Directory or Radius Connector, but there is a third option for you within the Untangle interface itself, which is called our local directory on the box. So we'll touch on each of those areas. So even if you don't use AD or Radius, then you can still benefit from basically a Directory Connector. Again, policy management is one of Untangle's most powerful tools. I was mentioning earlier to my colleagues that this is one of my the great features of Untangle, and I enjoy demoing this policy feature because it really does allow you to manage a lot on your network, and based on groups, racks, users, that kind of stuff. There is a lot of capability within this product. So we'll show the way to set up racks by users, whether it be teacher versus student. You can run different policies on different racks. You can run racks independently, or you can run them simultaneously, basically having rules and policies mapped over to different groups. And in the demo, I'll show you kind of how to set that up too. So let's move on. to the demo, let me switch over to my Untangle interface box. I apologize. Hang on with me for a second. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen here. Shannon, I'm assuming you can see my screen?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. So most of you are familiar with the Untangle interface. This is what you would see when you first log into your Untangle box. And again, there's a lot of information stored within this interface. You've got all of your areas of concern up here with regards to sessions, hosts, network traffic, memory, and all of that would be available to you. So let's dive into the modules that we're discussing today. And first, I'm going to start with the directory connector. So let's click here. This is within the feature or module itself. So we'll start here. This Active Directory tab that you see here contains a setting for connecting and communicating with the domain controller. Other applications such as Captive Portal can use Directory Connector to authenticate and identify users against existing domain controller. So as you see here, you would just need to set it up based on your Active Directory or your current settings within your Active Directory. And as you see on here, the lists or the options here, the IP address or host name of the Active Directory, that's where you would put it here. We recommend that you do use the IP to prevent DNS issues, but that should be known based on setup. Here you have the port to connect to your Active Directory server, and by default the port is 389. Authentication login is going to be your administrator. This basically is the login that and password to be able to have your Untangle talk to your Active Directory domain controller. So make sure that that matches. Finally, you need to put in your in the domain controller address, which is a FQDN, which basically means it's a fully qualified domain name. So be sure that enter something here that is a fully qualified domain name so that you can access it and it runs properly. This next field here is actually optional, but it allows you to put in your Active Directory organization name or unit. That contains different types of users. If you want, what it can do for you is it allows you to find all users, or you can leave this blank. If you want to limit specific users to specific parts of the domain tree, then what you'll want to do is set up, specify the OU path in a format as OU equals OU name. Multiple OUs can be used, just make sure that you separate them by a comma there. So these are all areas that have to map to your current Active Directory settings. And again, if you have that set up already, then all of that information is available to you and just needs to be put into your Untangle instance. So moving on a little bit down. You can use the test tools to verify the settings and view incomplete user lists. After Active Directory is configured, then what you would do is configure the Captive Portal, which is another feature built into Untangle. We're not going to touch on that today, but there are areas that can work in conjunction with Captive Portal, Active Directory, and Policy Manager. That'll be on another webinar, but just be aware that you can configure the Captive Portal and use authenticating users if you need to as well. There are lots of things to consider as you see here when setting up the directory connector. However, if you want, you can use a username map per user, per group policies, or per group reports. So you've got two choices when doing this. Again, the Active Directory login script or the Captive Portal is another. And as we get down to the local directory a little bit later, I can show you how that works as well. Just a side note, I want to make sure that this is pointed out. Untangle recommends that you do use Active Directory login script, as it will run automatically when users log in. If they do go with Captive Portal, they will have to enter their credentials to log into the window, and then again to access the internet. So you want to make sure that you're not forcing duplication of efforts in terms of logging in twice. You don't have to, so why do it that way? The application directory login script, if you click on the button below, and it actually has been moved since version 10, so if you're on a later version, it's actually on this screen here. If you click on this download a user notification login script, what that's going to do is bring up a separate page. It'll pull up a link with instructions on what to do. So really, it's just a small script that runs on the computers when they log in, when they meaning your users. Once this is installed, the script runs each time the user logs in, which immediately updates the Untangle to the username and the IP. Once this is completed, any activity will be mapped from the user, and this allows you to keep track of what's really going on in your network and what those users are performing. So it's very simple, and allows you to do a lot with your Active Directory and reporting with Untangle. So let's go back to this main script. So here, if you click on the Active Directory users, this is a list. Unfortunately, this is my home network, so I don't have an Active Directory. I don't need it here. But if you did have it synced with your Active Directory up here, this is where all of your users would be listed, the ones that are actually visible to Untangle. And this is what you would use to check your domain controller is actively syncing with Untangle. If you don't see anything here, then you're probably missing something up here, or you need to do a refresh there. So this is a way to check based on where you are. I did want to point out, as you set up your Active Directory, if you do have any issues with syncing or getting information logged from your Active Directory over to your Untangle, on each of our features there is a help button here that's going to bring you to our online wiki, and that really is going to provide a lot of information on setup as well as answering questions. And again, it is on it's consistent with across the board with all of our features, so this is just to show you where you can get additional information regarding Active Directory setup. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear as well. So back to the interface. Let's click on the radius. This was, we touched on Active Directory connection, and now let's check on the radius connector. And what this really is, it's the exact same thing as your Active Directory, just using a different connection. This allows you to authenticate the directory servers using a radius protocol. Please keep in mind that this is a fairly old protocol, but other features such as Captive Portal can use the radius server as well to authenticate against an existing radius server. It's personal preference and how you want to set it up and what benefits you as an organization. So really, it's going to be a matter of mapping what you currently have with your radius server over to your directory connector feature in the Untangle instance. So let's look here. Here we have the radius IP, of course, or host name. That's going to be mapped. We recommend, again, that you use IP addresses versus something else to prevent DNS issues. That's always helpful, no matter where you are within the Untangle instance. IP addresses is how we format and how we report within Untangle, so keep that in mind when setting things up. Again, you've got your authentication port, which by default is 1812. You've got your accounting port, which again is by default 1813. These are based on what Untangle feels. If you've got different ports that you need to use, then you would edit those here. The shared secret is actually a very important feature. It basically needs to match what your shared secret is on your radius server. The only way that it's going to work properly is if these two match. So make sure that that is apparent when crossing over and setting up your radius connection within the directory connector. The two options in terms of authentication method are going to be your PAP or your CHAP, password authentication protocol, and challenge handshake authentication protocol. These are two options that you have, and that's basically, you would want to go over to directory connector on the wiki to figure out what works best for your organization, and that's something that you would decide. So again, your wiki is going to be your right-hand man in terms of giving answers and finding information on setup. All right. Let's look at the test button. This basically, if you run a test, again, I don't have Active Directory or radius servers behind my network, so I don't have access to those. But this is where you would do an authentication test to make sure that everything is properly synced and running. And unfortunately, nothing is specified here, so it's not showing up. But in your instance, if you did have everything synced correctly, you would have information populated here. In addition to both of Active Directory and Radius, the event log is going to show you any type of timestamp, client IP, username. All of those are going to populate here once you get everything connected. So you can look at events. By default, it's set to 1,000. You do have options to move up to 50,000 events. So just keep in mind that if you're not seeing everything you want, there are some filters and some settings that you can set up within the event log here. Shannon, do we have any questions on Directory Connector? I know it's a little bit harder to understand, but it is fairly simple in terms of just mapping from Active Directory over to the Untangle instance. And
No.
without having a network set up, it's fairly self-explanatory in terms of what you need.
Yeah, we're good right now. Keep going.
Okay, awesome. So what I'm going to do is bring us back to our main interface, and like I mentioned before, if you don't have Active Directory or you don't have the Radius server connection, what you can use is our local settings or local directory within Untangle. If you click on this under the Config tab over here, what this allows you to do is it stores a list of users that can be used by applications. To add new users, you basically would click here. It's going to give you filters or required information, user login, first name, last name, email address, and password. And of course, this password is going to be what your administrator gives or provides to this user or this Active Directory local user, excuse me. And then you can also set up expiration time. So for instance, if you are a hotel or a school providing Wi-Fi or something like that, along those lines, what you can do is set up time frames for a specific user to be able to access internet. And this is where you would do this either under the local directory. You can set up time frames days by days, and then you can also set up time frames based on term. So once this term has been met, meaning once the time frame expires, that user will no longer have login authentication. So that's a great thing. You can also add to it. So if you've got somebody staying for 24 hours and then they add an additional night or whatever, buy an additional drink or something like that, you can add time to their login specifically. But again, this is something you would manually have to update within your Untangle and manage based on the need of the customer or the client. All right, so that's kind of, in a nutshell, that is Directory Connector and local directory. And then let's get into the Policy Manager. This is a great feature within Untangle that allows you to, sorry, let me get back to the main interface. So Policy Manager really does allow you to, it works by allowing you to create virtual racks. And what we consider a rack within Untangle is a group of policies. It's much like a traditional server rack, but unlike those server racks, the Untangle virtual rack can contain multiple devices or applications that perform different functions on network traffic. As we go through the demo, you'll be able to see what I mean by that. It'll make a little bit more sense. With web filtering, content filtering, Policy Manager allows you to create policy rules and send traffic to different racks, which can contain multiple independent configured apps. So let's jump in here. As we look at the interface, Untangle is always going to have at least one rack, and we call that our default rack. So up here, this is where all of your racks are going to be listed. You have the default rack. I've gone ahead and before the demo created 3 additional racks. You've got a first grade, second grade, and third grade, but this is the same for any kind of business as well. You could have you know, CEO, CFO, exec staff, you could have clerical staff, and you could have consultants, however it works in your specific industry or your vertical, that's how you would want to work it. But for today, I'm just going to go ahead and use a school or an education setting as our demo. So once let's go under the Policy Manager and let's walk through setting up some policies and the benefit and how you would run this in your organization. So from the Policy Manager tab, you see your policies, your rules, and your event log. Under your racks, this is where you would create racks. So just to show you, for instance, I'm going to go ahead and create a new rack for today's demo. I'm going to do Policy Manager, Directory Connector, Demo Rack. Description is actually going to be shown to you in your Policy Management rack. So this can be, you're able to put whatever you want in here. So I'm just going to do test for today and go ahead and save that. So here you see that it's been populated under our rack, and then when you apply the settings, it actually goes back to the default rack and is now an option under your policy manager. So you see that I had the default rack, first, second, and third grade, and now my new rack is populated here. So you can get to each of these racks by clicking here, or you can view the entire policy management options that you have created by clicking on Policy Manager. So I think it's an important aspect to represent when we talk about policy management. We have something called parent racks versus student racks, or exec racks versus employee racks. Depends on how you want to look at it. The benefit of that is that you can set up a parent rack or your default rack, which we recommend being your most restrictive rack, and then inheriting those policies and basically setting up your network or your specific policies based on that parent rack. That's not only going to save you time, but it's going to have an overall consistent method of filtering along, no matter which group or which policy that user is put into. So by default, this is basically the setup of your rack. What I'm going to go ahead and do is create the parent rack real time. So I'm going to install web filter. I'm going to install virus blocker. I'm going to install bandwidth control. I think those are great features to run across the network. And again, whatever you do with this default rack can be inherently processed through to your child rack or your first, second, third grade racks. So to set that up again, you would click on settings. I'm going to go ahead and click through to change some of these settings just to have a reference point. I'm just arbitrarily clicking things, so no judgment here. We're going to go ahead and apply those settings. So now that web filter feature has been updated within the default rack. You can do the same thing for any features within this parent rack or this default rack, and those again will transfer over to your other racks. So if I go in and I click on, let me go back to the policy manager so you can see kind of how that works. So the default rack has been set up. The first grade rack, I'm taking the settings from the default rack. So if we click on edit, this is where you would select that. Again, you're going to create your first grade rack, access based on grade level, and then this is where you're going to have the option to choose which rack you want to start with. You can choose none and create your own rack, or you can inherit the settings from your parent rack, which will transfer over to this as a starting place. So let's go ahead and do that. That was actually already done, so we'll go ahead and apply the settings here. And I'll show you how to do that once you get to that child rack or that first grade rack. So back to the main interface, if you click on first grade, you'll see that the web filter, the virus blocker, and the bandwidth control are all now within this first grade rack. And you will always know which rack you're on by looking at this drop down here. It tells you which rack you're on. So by being grayed out versus this sharp gray color here, this means that you're inheriting policies or settings from another rack. And again, parent rack is listed here. If the web filtering within your parent rack is not necessarily what you want for that first grade rack, you can just install on top of that and modify it based on the need for that specific grade level. So again, the rack was inheriting the web filter policies that we had set up previously, but now that we have a change in a code of conduct or we've got a change within SIPA compliance or something along those lines, you can modify the web filter to tag different areas of concern, whether it be gambling, gaming, whatever the need is. So you would apply those. And now what that's going to do is that's going to take over precedence in terms of the parent rack that you previously had set up. That goes along with everything else. So if you wanted to add specific features that you didn't have in your parent rack, you would just simply install those from the left-hand side into your virtual rack here. All right, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Again, parent rack settings can be mapped to your end user settings. You set up specific racks, or there is no limit to the amount of racks that you can set up. All you would do is add those here and go through setting up a different rack for each group or each level within your organization. So what does that mean? That's great, and you want to have the next step within managing your network or allowing access to specific areas on the internet. So you've got your policies and your racks set up. What you want to do next is click on the rules, and you can add rules specifically for your racks. So what you would do is, this is a listing of all of your protocols, and within creating your racks, you can start to configure by rules. In this drop down, you pick a condition for the rule. You can add a lot that you see here. So I'm just going to use, for an example, I'm going to use time of day. So children come into school at 7 o'clock and they leave at 3. What we want to do is we want to map the first grade rack, and we want to set up a time that the policies will be in place. So time of day is, this is your drop down as well, this is a selection, and then you want to set up a specific custom value, or you want to use a specific range of time. So I'm going to say 7 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, or 3:30, either way. And then you want to allow that here. So the first grade rack, during the time of day, the policies that you have in place that you've set up will be enforced between 7 and 3 for that specific rack. So a child comes online with the IP address, it's forced to map through the first grade rack, and they have access to policies and filtering that you've set up between 7 and 3. Outside of that, you can set up a separate rack for Wi-Fi access, which only allows them to go to specific sites that you deem acceptable. You can set up as many rules as you want. Just keep in mind that these rules are and rules, and what that means for you is it's synchronized. So each of these have to be met for the device to connect and have access to the sites that you deem acceptable. So you want to be careful when setting up a lot of rules at the same time, that you're not kind of overlapping and causing more trouble than you are helping. So you can pick time of day that you want them to help gain access. So Monday through Friday, if you're a school, after hours, you open up the internet for your employees to, visit Facebook or whatever the case is. During lunchtime would be a great feature or a use case for setting up rules on your policy racks, and opening up, social media during that lunch hour. So this is just an example, but again, this can be done with any of the racks within your Untangle instance. You can set up as many racks as you want and set up as many rules within those racks specifically. So I think that's a good example of how that runs and how that works. All of your rules will be listed here, and again, you can click on edit and change those filtering, the descriptions at any point. Again, this is what your administrator is going to see, so you have access to this and manage how you need to. The event log, again, is going to be any type of processing or rules, policies in place, any type of traffic coming across the network. And again, this is my home network here, so I don't have much traffic to filter through, but your instance would be much different in terms of IP address, client. If you use Active Directory or Radius, then your client name would be listed here, port, username based on those setups, those configurations, and then the server ID. So all of that information would be available to you, not only in your policy management, but within your reporting, and you can manage your network and analyze the need of additional features within the Untangle. So hopefully that was helpful. That's just a quick overview of kind of how to set up rules in your company. How you can save yourself some time in terms of setting up a restrictive default rack and inheriting those properties over to grade levels, company levels, or that kind of stuff. So hopefully that was helpful. And Shannon, do we have any questions in terms of policy management? I know there's a lot of information, and kind of I went a little bit fast on that, but hopefully you get the gist of what we can do to help you at different levels.
Yeah, we do have a few questions.
Sure.
Can I use my existing Active Directory groups to create policies for different groups of users?
Yeah, yep, okay, I understand, no problem. So yeah, if you're using Directory Connector to authenticate against Active Directory, you can create policies by username or group. And to do that, you would simply set up a policy of your liking, click Users, and then you'd be able to select the users from the group to add to that list. So yes, you absolutely can do that. And that's what I was mentioning with when you set up your rack. If you go back into your policy manager here, within the first grade rack, you would be able to set up rules based on your Active Directory. Your event logs would replicate or reference what you have within your Active Directory. Your usernames would be populated here. If you didn't have that and you only use local directory, then you would have a timestamp, a client IP, and a port. So yes.
Okay, great. Just a few more coming in. I'm using Untangle's OpenVPN application. Do I need to create racks for the VPN users?
Okay. I think I understand what they're asking there. You don't have to create extra virtual racks to use OpenVPN. By default, its traffic will go through the default rack, which is what Untangle deems the main rack of the instance. You can use the firewall to allow or deny VPN user access to resources as you deem fit. So furthermore, if you don't want OpenVPN traffic to be filtered at all, you'd want to create a rule for the OpenVPN clients and select no rack as a target rack. So that's just an extra step on top of creating your rack first, creating your rules within that rack, and then the extra step of selecting no rack as the target rack.
All right, great. Thanks, Katie. Just a few more. I only want to scan inbound email traffic, but not outbound. Do I need to create a new rack?
No. By default, actually, outbound email traffic is not scanned. If you would like to do this, the only option available is to use the spam blocker, and unfortunately, Untangle doesn't recommend. It's highly recommended that you don't do this. So just be sure when you want to scan specific inbound traffic or emails that you're looking at the email itself and the spam capability within the spam blocker. But again, there are some areas of concern from Untangle's perspective, so that might be something that you want to work with our tech team on.
All right, I think that's about the rest of the questions, Katie, unless you see any more you want to answer.
Yeah, let me take a look real quick at the questions and see if there's anything. Feel free to add those questions in. If we don't get to them today on the call, then we can follow up later, afterwards. So what I'm going to do is follow up as those questions continue to roll in. What I'll allow, we have a support tech on the line as well as some sales assistants, and they'll continue to answer questions. But I did want to go ahead and give you some reference points. Again, I showed you that the Untangle website has a lot of information. Within the Untangle interface, you can click on that help button at the bottom left-hand corner to bring you to our wikis specific for the feature that you're requesting information about. And as always, we do have sales help as well as support help for anybody with current subscriptions or trialing the Untangle solution. So keep those in mind, and we're here to help you as you need. Shannon, if there's no more questions, then I'd like to go ahead and wrap this up for today. If we didn't answer your question, please feel free to email sales@untangle.com. If you've got a paid subscription or a trial in place, and you just need a little bit of help setting up the policies, or you're not sure how to map the Active Directory into your Untangle instance, send an email to support@untangle.com so that we can help you with that and get you up and running.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.